right, welcome to the fourth and final review of the season. Up this time is Quake 2. Now, Quake 2 is a game that has had a bit of a heavy feature on the program recently, as we did a topic of discussion covering the history of Quake 2, and just a few days ago we featured some of the multiplayer. And we have footage of some of the single player this time. Petty is, of course, playing that. Anyway, so point is, I've already talked about Quake 2 quite a bit before this review. So those details can be heard elsewhere, and, don't really need to go into what is Quake 2 and so on and so forth. Now, this is more about, did Night Dive do a good job remastering Quake 2 for the modern era? And I think the answer is a rather unsurprisingly, maybe even boring yes. Because Night Dive Studios are well known and generally well regarded for their remastering. They are not without controversy, though, and have not been since, I'd say, about Turok 1, but perhaps getting more and more prominent, because, how do I put this? Accuracy. Yes. That's been a point of contention with Night Dive's remasters. It has been for some time. Because what we have on display here, even though it's called Quake 2, it's not the Quake 2 you remember. Not quite. They've made changes to Quake 2. And that kind of approach is always going to be controversial. Because you do risk in changing things. You're not getting the same play experience that you did whenever a said game was released, for good or for ill. I suppose it depends on, what's added / changed. And to admit, I don't have a comprehensive list of what was changed for Quake 2 in front of me, though I could probably look that up. I suppose I should detail some of the most contentious changes, although there's a further caveat because of how long it took to actually get to this review. We are actually post update 1. and that has further adjusted things. I bring this up because one of the most contentious changes, the nerfing of the railgun, has finally been fixed. I know this has been met with a lot of ire, because the railgun in Quake 2 is one of the most powerful weapons around. And its damage quotient was adjusted. Now, the thing is, I don't know if it's been restored to proper 1998 levels yet. What I do know is in the patch notes, the railgun the damage has been bumped up from 100 to 125. Like, it's really going to be up to the nuts to determine if that's, a restorative change or not. I did not play I can't say I didn't play any Quake 2 back in the day, but it wasn't a lot. Certainly not enough for me to note changes on that level. But once again, far from the only change. I went over some of the others, like the Berserker's jump attack was re-added, and that was met with controversy. Not just because, personally, I think it looks bad and unfinished, because it was a cut feature from the original game. And once again, restoring this is not without controversy, because it gets into another facet of the original play experience versus a modified / better / more accurate play experience. Because I believe, like, Night it does like to frame this not so much as the most accurate version, but usually like the definitive version of a game, because often when recompiling the games for remastering, they have to engage in hybridization, because dealing with a couple of different versions. It's not quite the case with Quake 2. We played through a bit of Quake 2 64 on Friday, but Quake 2 64, hasn't been added to the main campaign or anything like that. It's essentially the 5th campaign of this version of Quake 2. It's off in its own little corner, versus like what they did with, say, Shadow Man Remastered, where they took bits and pieces from all the different versions of Shadow Man and popped it up into a new jambalaya, if you will. Like, but I would say the most drastic changes that were added to this version, in terms of gameplay tweaks, were the compass, which is an invaluable piece of kit. Not the first time that's appeared, and once again, it's not without controversy because, once again, there are people who are complaining about the existence of this thing because, it cheapens the experience and things of that nature. Motherfuck, I appreciate not getting lost in the Quake 2 levels because
I'd say they hadn't invented mini maps or maps yet, except for they totally had.
yeah, I'm like,
Well, and also it's an active thing you need to turn on yourself. It's not. I could see them having issue if this was something like constantly on.
right, like,
But if you don't like the compass, just don't use it, bro.
that is a good point. I'm like, and the other big addition are the radial dials. You hold down a button and you will get a radial menu of either your weapon selection or your item selection. Like, and this was done to accommodate controllers because this has full controller support, which I know is sacrilege to old school PC players.
Yeah.
And I get that. I do. I personally play FPSs with a keyboard and mouse because
look, if people want to play it with a moderately less precise control scheme because it's more what their hands are more comfortable with, I think that should be allowed, and I have very little patience for people's. When I was playing this game growing up, we had to walk upstairs, up and down, uphill both ways with a four-way digital joystick, and
oh god,
only one button.
This is not a new argument. I had arguments about this shit in the 90s. PC players were always that fucking elitist. Maybe even more so back then. Because
when I played Doom, we didn't even have WASD because they hadn't installed the W part of QWERTY yet.
Don't give them ideas.
No shit. But yeah. It was always insufferable. It's actually what drove me from PC gaming for quite a number of years. A lot of arguments with my older brother about the merits of a controller. I'm like, yes, I know GoldenEye doesn't use a mouse and keyboard. No, I don't fucking care.
I mean, most analog control stick shooters use a small to moderate amount of aim assist, even if they don't even tell you about it, because it's less precise than using a mouse.
Yes. Like, my point is, you're fucking annoying, and nobody wants to hear you because you spent $2,000 on the latest kit. Okay? Like, Quake 2 got released for all the systems that are active in the year of 2023.
I could get Quake 2 on my Switch if I really wanted to, just to piss these fools off.
Yeah. And make no mistake, they exist, and they are loud.
Loud's an understatement, bro.
Yes, I know. But I will say that at least for items, I use the radial dial because it was easier than configuring the item select to the a convenient set of buttons. Here's the thing. I didn't have that. I usually don't have item select on the finger accessible buttons. Let's say more like close, but I have to lift the hand to get to them.
Yeah. Like, a lot of people end up putting them on their numpad or whatever.
Yeah. Like I'll use the bracket keys. Once again, I'm left-handed, so I use arrow keys for my WASD, because actual WASD is clunky, and uncomfortable for me.
Understandable.
Yeah. But that's not the. My point is,
They must make ergonomic left-handed mouses, right?
it's not a real issue because it's a mouse.
Like, theoretically, you could get a mouse that has all the buttons you would need, but why would you want to pay that if you don't want to?
Oh no, I was just thinking that I hadn't thought if you're using a mouse with your left hand, you either want a symmetrical one, or if you want one of the good ones, you'd have to be the other side.
Well, here's the thing. I do have thumb buttons, I believe they're called, on this mouse. 2 of them.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, they're on the left side. But I can I can easily use my middle finger to use them. I'm using my dominant hand, so it's not a problem.
Fair enough.
And I for Quake 2, I got my jump and my crouch mapped to those buttons. Anyway, getting back to what I was trying to say, using the radial dial for the items was much more convenient for me than using the old school method. Still use the mouse wheel for the weapons, even though I could use the radial dial for that, and arguably more accessible, but old habits are hard to break.
Oh, yeah.
So I just use the mouse wheel. Sometimes, with Quake 2's selection, it can go by a bit too fast at times, if I'm being honest. Like that, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah. The changes, controversial as always. I generally think they are for the good. That's usually from the place that Night Dive is operating from.
Well,
but like
usually
I said,
Night Dive has options to turn some of the stuff off if it's really that much of a problem for you.
Yeah, and I think those are here. I'll be honest, I didn't. Yeah,
options.
Yeah. It's been a while since I looked at the options. Vibration.
Yeah, I can unbind the the weapon wheel if I want.
Right.
Or I can just quick bind the compass to a button if I wanted to.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing you get with Night Dive remasters.
Yeah, there's just a direct button unbind.
Yeah, and of course of course you're going to get button selections for all the weapons because this is a FPS from 1998.
Yeah, this is how true to life though this is. It has turn left and turn right, keyboard buttons if you want to go just keyboard.
Yeah.
Bro, you're covered. If you want to be one of those psychopaths who play Quake 2 without a mouse, they got you, fam.
Uh-huh.
I question your sanity, but they got you.
Yes. Anyway, so worth noting that CEO and friend of the show, and I wish he had more time so he could come on the program to talk about Quake 2, but they're quite busy these days. But I mean, I asked him recently, and he apologized. He's swamped. Anyway, so he has said that Night Dive got taken to new levels with this particular remaster and Quake 1, apparently. Like,
I can't tell if that's a pun or not.
No, I don't think he was joking. Like, because
So this is Steven we're talking about, so
that is a fair point, but I don't think he was joking. Anyway, because the thing I want to mention here, so what they did that's new here for Night Dive is they have done something that when games of this age are remastered are usually skipped over.
Mm-hmm.
That is cutscenes.
Yeah, usually they might get a texture, glow up, but that's about it. They don't, redo them or anything like that.
Yeah, this and Return of the Triad Ludicrous Edition, they redid the fucking cutscenes to be in 4K.
Mm-hmm.
With Rise of the Triad, they actually got all of the fucking original actors, got all the costuming, and took new scans.
Jesus.
I think that might have been on New Blood's side, but...
That's still Jesus.
With Quake 2 here, they actually went in and re-rendered all of the cutscenes.
Yeah. And we're talking nearly 20 years old.
Yeah.
I doubt the source stuff for this was easy to come by, even though it was id.
Yeah. I'm like, I think they got the source material here, because...
If they're going to 4K, they're basically going to have to.
Yeah. I'm like, my point is, you can run all of the cutscenes in modern resolutions. That's the shit that usually you can't adjust, because whatever resolution or, resolutions you attune the game for, that's it. You can't upscale that, usually.
Well, back in those days, you have a CRT monitor, so you technically have, switches that can friggin' adjust the size of your projection in the screen space if you know what you're doing, but...
right, but, even...
That doesn't change the actual resolution, just the size.
Yeah.
Right.
Even though, PCs in, the late 90s could go above 640 by 480, you still weren't, building for, say, 1080p or... higher.
640 by 480 was the standard computer resolution for a while.
Yeah, but something like Quake 2 probably pushed beyond that, because once again, Quake 2 wasn't just your average PC game. It was the cutting edge of 1998 in terms of graphic technology. id Software was kind of renowned for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, if any game was pushing up beyond standard resolution, it'd be one of theirs. I couldn't rattle off how high that could get on a 1998 or so computer, but I'm reasonably certain it was beyond, standard resolution, or it was. So, my ultimate point is, once again, Night Dive has gone above and beyond the usual remastering Call of Duty to many others, and has delivered an experience that is just as fresh and bold as it was in 1998, which is to say, not as much as it used to be, but it's still a really good time. Quake 2, even in 1998, wasn't winning any awards for originality. Like, which was a bone of contention back then. Less so now. Because everyone was just expecting every id Software game to be a grand pillar of innovation. Like, when that's not really how innovation works. Or rather, Quake 2 kind of was the id Software game that didn't reach that peak. Because, the most of the other id Software FPSs of the era of the 90s did innovate in some fashion. Like, but Quake 2 is definitely like the most derivative that they made themselves. That's not getting into like the Heretic Hexen branch. Like, anyway, but that's that is certainly less important here in the year of 2023. Quake 2, it doesn't have the history of a Wolfenstein 3D or a Doom, even a Quake 1. But I ultimately think it's a better game than Quake 1. I'll say it. Mainly because it has a coherent vision. Okay? Like, I know Quake 1 has many, many fans. I'm among them. Like, I played a shit ton of Quake 1 back in the day, but there's no getting around the fact that it is a torrid mishmash of styles that had to be cobbled together. Quake 2, ultimately, aesthetically, is less interesting than Quake 1. That's mainly because Quake 1 just kind of accidentally fell into all of that. Quake 2, to put it succinctly, knows what it wants to be throughout the entire game. At least the main campaign. Because I did say I was going to mention that at some point, but I guess here's as good a point as any. Because Call of the Machine, the new scenario made by Machine Games, kind of changes the game, so to speak, in everything. So, the story of Quake 2 is pretty simple. It's what you would expect from a 1998 id Software game, especially because we are post John Carmack, we're post Tom Hall. Anyone who had a narrative vision is gone or subdued by John I love technology Carmack. So,
yeah, his vision definitely got into trouble. That's for damn sure.
Maybe not trouble, but he very famously compared the story in games to the story in porn. In that, it's expected to be there, but it's not important. And you can very much see that in the id Software games of the 90s. Like, interestingly enough, less so when we get to the Doom 3 era. But we're not talking
about
hell
we need to go into it someday, isn't it?
Not necessarily, but
valid. And don't make it go back to the dark place.
Yes, I remember playing Doom 3, like, unmodded. Very dark.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. Like, anyway. So, the story of Quake 2 is you are Space Marine Bitterman. Like I said,
Yes.
You actually do have a name, which was a step forward in terms of characterization. I'm not even joking. Like, this is the first id name protagonist.
Yeah. Because remember, we didn't actually know of Doom Guy's name till, Doom 3?
Doom 3 is a reboot, so that don't count.
Valid.
Anyway.
I forget. I think it was started out in some supplementary material or something.
I know the Doom Bible wasn't released for years.
Yeah.
And that had Doom Guy's name in it and revealed that he was a Blazkowicz descendant.
Yeah, he's a Blask. I forget his actual first name, but he's a Blazkowicz.
Yeah.
I.e. Commander Keen's great something or other grandson.
Grandson, I think.
Yeah.
But just grandson.
Something like
anyway,
that.
Anyway. So, the basic story of Quake 2 is you are lone space marine fighting against the biomechanical forces of the Straw. And that's about all there is to it.
Good luck, don't die.
Yeah, in terms of the, basic, the basic narrative. The story for each unit is, you got to get to a place, you got to maybe take down the missiles the Strogg are firing, you got to take down the shield generator, that kind of thing. Very basic story. Very light on lore and all that. No, like the actual lore and such for the Strogg comes in Quake 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you learn what the Strogg presumably are. And that is humans that have been, and other species that have been Stroggified, i.e., had bits of them ripped out and replaced with machinery, which you, by the way, get to experience in Quake 4. It is the one thing people remember from Quake 4.
Quake 4 was a thing that happened.
Yes. The thing is, Call of the Machine has changed the narrative.
And that there is one.
Yeah. So, to make a long story short, Quake, Call of the Machine attempts to marry the
We're coming back.
Okay, you're gonna have to stitch that together.
I don't know if I can.
Why would you can't?
Because I don't have a local recording.
You have to label things part 1, part 2.
We'll see.
Is it
or you're gonna have
to download them and then stitch them? Or
probably, maybe. I don't know where it cut at. I was busy playing, so
it wasn't more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Vexing. I don't think so.
Anyway, Petty will deal that in a couple days' time.
Yeah, that's something for future pay to deal with, if needed.
you'll probably just label this part 2.
Yeah, or
no, it's weird.
Yeah, or Twitch didn't screw up and it's all one part just with like a little error thing in it. We'll find out.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, it's good that you're on this screen. Well, it's like there is another thing that I have to detail. But anyway, so yeah, basically, what the Call of the Machine campaign is saying is that the Strogg are actually more creations of Shrub Nagura, the mother of with 1,000 young, and however that goes.
We don't like to use the normal name anyway because H.P. Lovecraft was racist.
Like,
I mean, he's not wrong though.
Anyway,
seriously, I've seen an amount of discourse on trying to come up with another name for the black goat of the woods with 1,000 young.
Yeah, there we go. I'm like, anyway, but like the Shrub Nagurath in Quake 1 isn't even Shrub Nagurath.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's more like, I think it's more Yog-Sothoth, if it's any old one, but once again, details. You know, basically, we're fighting more of an old one's children. Allegedly.
So typical Tuesday.
Yeah. And yeah, it's being seen as kind of clunky, but once again, I don't think it matters all that much because it's the lore and backstory to Quake fucking 2. You're really getting wrapped up in this, not award-winning narrative.
This is the hill you're willing to die on. All right.
Yeah. I'm like, look, if the creative forces at id Software couldn't be bothered to give that much of a shit, why should I?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is more Machine Games writing the book now. I mean, it's canon because id Software gave their stamp of approval to it, but on the other hand, not sure how much of the Quake 2 people are still around at id. Like,
or at this point, still around in general, This is 20 years ago. Over.
Verging on 20. Yeah, more like 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 25. Anyway, so something that we've been having in the retro discourse this year is special features. Like, okay, I'm not sure why the snickering's going on.
Oh, a lot of times when you bring up the term special features with classic remakes, it gets some people salty.
I'm like, every aspect I'm bringing up here gets people salty.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is like, what I'm talking about is probably the thing that gets people the least amount of salt. Because it's not changing it. It's the goodies that come along with shit, if you will. Like, anyway, if we could show off what this package actually has in terms of historical notes, because it's actually quite extensive. Anyway, as I was saying, you'll note that the historical sources thing, historical context and things of that nature. That game has been up this year. I'll refer back to our interviews with Digital Eclipse this year. We've had 3 of them. And also, I think we had an interview with them last year. Anyway, they're pursuing the interactive documentary style of chronicling a game or a game package's journey. And Night Dive isn't quite approaching that. Maybe because that is literally trademark, or that might be a copyrighted process by Digital Eclipse. I genuinely don't know. Like, maybe something to ask Digital Eclipse when we have them on the program next. Anyway, my point is, while the presentation is much more traditional, with the historical documents, and it's no less extensive than what we saw with the making of Karateka recently. And I mean in terms of, like, down to the details stuff. We're talking the design notes. Like the original design notes were scanned in and put in this collection, if you will. Remastering. We've got original print ads. We've got localization notes. I think there was a discussion about not having Nazi imagery, although like the word Nazi was actually censored. There are a few things that are censored in the package. I'm presuming the Nazi word being censored is because of Germany.
Yeah.
Like the other thing, like they got a advertisement for the console versions of Quake 2, and they actually had to censor the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 logos because those are owned by Nintendo and Sony, and presumably either that was too expensive, or Sony and Nintendo would not allow that. That's what I'm guessing, because keep in mind, this package isn't just appearing on, say, the PC or the Nintendo console or the Sony console. It's appearing on both, and the Microsoft console. And yeah, I'm guessing that Nintendo and Sony didn't want their branding to appear on a competing system, even in a historical ad. Do not underestimate the pettiness of these companies.
Oh yeah, God, no.
But that's not all. The thing that really elevates this package to the level of what we saw in the making of Karateka et al. Is that they've got prototype builds. Maybe not prototypes necessarily, but beta builds is perhaps more accurate.
But the remake, or like the OG prototypes?
OG.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, we've got a build from E3 98, I believe.
Ooh.
ECTS 98.
Fuck, that's a name I haven't heard in about 15 years.
Yeah, I'm like I said, we've got specific trade show builds in this sucker. Like I said, they're not presented. Yeah, they're not presented on a timeline explaining, like Quake 2, like, once again, what the making of Karateka did. And I'll be honest, I'm iffy in that if that approach would work with a game like Quake 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because Quake 2 is a big fucking game.
To put it lightly.
Yeah. You know, that's here's the thing. That's one of the things that made the making of Karateka and even Atari 50 work. You know, nothing is that big. Or at least most of that. You know, I know Atari 50 has some Jaguar games, though I'd be interested to see who can endure Cybermore for the entirety of its run. That's neither here nor there. Anyway, the point is, presenting Quake 2 like Karateka, I don't think would work. At least not like how the making of Karateka worked. I would say that the big thing that was missing from this package were historical documentaries.
Interviews with the team and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't remember that popping up. Either modern or old. Stuff dug up from the time. I think could be so I guess that's a dint against that. But like I said, this is just a different approach. And Night Dive wasn't looking at it quite in the same way, say, Digital Eclipse was looking at one of their things. And so on and so forth. Like I said, ultimately, I still think Quake 2 is the better historical package. Well, if only because Quake 2 is a better game than Karateka. I know it's perhaps not all that fair to compare the two, but like I said, I'm someone who didn't enjoy Karateka all that much back in the day. See my review of the making of Karateka for more details. I think the making of Karateka is ultimately the stronger historical package, since it's aiming for what what an actual historian would do. And as someone who got their college degree in history, I can't ignore that. Nor will I. But it's like a question: which game would I actually want to play? It's going to be Quake 2 every fucking time.
And a few times on Sundays.
Yeah, I mean that's more a subjective thing, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is still an excellent package. That is well worth owning.
Now,
looking
at some of the concept art, now that I have a chance.
Yeah. Anyway, so in terms of pricing, if you already owned this game on Steam, you already have this. This was one of the remasters that, if you own the original version, you get the remaster gifted to you. I always appreciate that. Opposed to being charged for the new version. But aside from that, this new and shiny version of Quake 2 will run you $9.99 on your platform of choice, which is a very easy recommendation. Given not just the amount of work that's gone into modernize Quake 2, but just the amount of content. because you've got the original campaign, you've got the 2 mission packs that were released back in the day. You got the new campaign, Call of the Machine. You've got Quake 264 as, once again, the bonus 5th campaign. And from what I've heard, they are looking into adding the PlayStation version of Quake 2 to the mix eventually.
That's nearly 80% more Quake per Quake.
Yeah. I think the only thing that would be missing is some of the community stuff that got packaged, which was a fairly common thing back in the day. Who else remembers Q-Zone?
I do not off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, that was actually that was a literal bundling of mods and shit.
Mm.
And it's understandable why that wouldn't be here, because they would need the they would need the permission of the community to do that.
Yeah.
Also worth noting, also the soundtrack by Sonic Mayhem has also been re-recorded. In fact, that was the thing that tipped everyone off to the Quake 2 remaster. Is we found out that the Quake 2 soundtrack was being remastered. Anyway, like I said, Quake 2, one of the best games I played this year. Not just for review, just in general. But, I rather like this style of FPS. It's come up on the show before. Petty, is there anything you want to add?
Not really. I just find this kind of cool. Do more cool shit.
Yeah. Anyway, so that'll about do it for the review of Quake 2. And indeed, that does it for this review session and reviews for the season. So coming up on the week ahead, really only one thing left, and that's our season finale. On October 11th, we'll be welcoming John Pickett of Manga Gamer. At least we hope to. So John told me a couple of days ago that his wife is very pregnant. And they've had a couple of pregnancy scares already. So there's a non-zero chance that they might be in the hospital dealing with either a pregnancy scare or the actual pregnancy, which would be concerning because their expectancy date is about a month out from where we're broadcasting from.
Yeah.
So, hopefully the baby can be retained in the womb until November.
Or there's just no issues,
Yeah. Look, so hopefully John will be able to join us on Wednesday. But I do have to put that out there. As far as what we're going to be showcasing, he actually hasn't given me the list of things that Manga Gamer has released recently.
Hopefully.
I'll probably ping him in the next. If I don't hear from him by Tuesday, I'll ping him.
Yeah.
Because gotta run through what's safe and what isn't, and what he'll give us. Anyway, so look for that on Wednesday, and until then, I shall wish you good gaming.